It's Tuesday, July 11th, and this is now on HNN. Crews continue to battle a brush fire on Hawaii Island that damaged structures and vehicles. Court proceedings are set to begin for the man accused of fatally shooting his wife's lover at the victim's Waipahu workplace.
A new nation is officially being added to the NATO alliance, but it's not Ukraine. I'm Skylar Henry with a look at what member nations say needs to happen before Ukraine can join.
I think we take it for granted exactly how much we're purchasing, shipping.
These stories, plus it's Amazon Prime Day, but your purchases could be impacted by the looming UPS strike. Details coming up on This Is Now. Aloha and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for watching This Is Now. Firefighters on Hawaii Island are keeping a close eye on hot spots after a brush fire in Kau. Now, some damage has been reported as firefighters battle the flames on land and from above.
Take a look at some of the images from when the flames were most intense. This fire started Monday afternoon near Kamaoa Road in Naalehu. It briefly shut down a portion of Kamaoa Road, which has since reopened. Structures and vehicles were reportedly damaged in the fire, but the full extent is not yet known. By Tuesday morning, officials said the flames burned 42 acres. Drivers in the area are asked to use caution as firefighters remain on scene to douse hot spots. At last check, no injuries have been reported.
5 people were rescued after getting into trouble in waters off Kauai. First responders say one person was in critical condition after the incident, another was in serious condition while 2 were unstable, and the 5th declined treatment. The incident happened just before 5 p.m. Sunday in waters off Kealia Beach. Lifeguards jumped in to assist the distressed swimmers who were near Kealia Point outside the river mouth. When firefighters arrived, they used rescue tubes to help bring the swimmers back to shore. Back on dry land, EMS continued treatment and took the 4 individuals to Wilcox Medical Center. First responders say the 5th individual was a Good Samaritan. Court proceedings are set to begin today for the man accused of killing his wife's lover in Waipahu. Eric Thompson faces a murder charge in the death of John Tokuhara in January 2022. Thompson is accused of shooting Tokuhara at the victim's acupuncture clinic after learning of the affair. Thompson has been on house arrest since posting $1 million bail last April. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges.
We're still awaiting a verdict in the trial of Thomas Gardner. The jury went into deliberations late last week, and they continued into this week. He's accused of murdering Kathy Hicks 41 years ago. Hikers found her body off Nu'uanupali Drive in 1982. Reports at the time indicated she was assaulted and strangled to death. New evidence linking Gardner to the crime scene is a result of advanced DNA technology and a national database. He had already been serving a life sentence in Florida for another woman's murder in 1984. We'll bring you the verdict as soon as we get it on air and online. A lawsuit has been filed by a police recruit on Maui who nearly died. The suit alleges she was put through a hazing ritual called Beat Down Friday. Our Chelsea Davis reports.
The Maui police recruit who nearly died during training last year is now suing, claiming her senior officers failed to help her. In addition to suing government entities, the lawsuit specifically names Clifton Pereira, Jeremy Palon de la Torre, Andrew Cabral, and Nolan Wada as defendants.
I normally don't do that necessarily unless the conduct is so outrageous.
The lawsuit filed by Michael Green last week states Alexa was hospitalized for life-threatening heat stroke and fell into a coma when her body temperature reached 107 degrees. The lawsuit claims it was an extra cross-country run that was not part of the standard physical fitness assessment to crank up the pressure on recruits as part of, quote, Beat Down Friday that proved to be almost fatal for Alexa Jacobs. The lawsuit states Alexa and some of her classmates were ordered to get into a plank position outside of the Maui Nui Botanical Gardens until one of their classmates caught up with the rest of them. That's the last thing Alexa remembered before passing out.
The recruit next to her saw her lips turn bright blue. No one cared. These supervisors didn't care. We're talking about a lieutenant, a sergeant, and a detective. They didn't care.
The lawsuit states it took around 5 minutes before Lieutenant Pallone Delator called for an ambulance. One of the dispatchers later stated that it didn't seem like a big deal or an emergency when the call came in. While waiting for the ambulance, one of the recruits asked Wada if he was going to do anything, to which he responded, "I'm not a medic." It also states the defendant stayed in a shaded area under a tree, leaving Alexa lying on the pavement unconscious under the hot sun. And it says Alexa arrived at the hospital as a Jane Doe, and none of the defendants accompanied her in the ambulance or went to the hospital to check on her.
They didn't care enough to give her a name or even get in the ambulance with her. You know what? They don't deserve to be supervisors. There's a reckoning, and some jury on Maui is going to tell them what they did.
MPD says they are aware that a lawsuit has been filed, but have not been served with the complaint and have no comment. Chelsea Davis, Hawaii News Now.
480,000 gallons of fuel is set to be drained from underground surge tanks at Red Hill next week. Officials say these tanks were used to hold fuel for transfers between the main storage tanks, but they are no longer in service. They won't be part of the main defueling effort, which is set to begin in October. The EPA and Hawaii Department of Health have granted conditional approvals to move the surge tank fuel to above-ground tanks at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. The entire process should take about 2 weeks.
On Capitol Hill, scientists called to testify before Congress about the origins of COVID-19 had to defend themselves against allegations of bribery and coercion. Republicans claim that Dr. Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins steered scientists away from the idea that the virus was created in a Wuhan, China lab. But the scientists who testified to the House Select Committee on the coronavirus pandemic said today it was evidence that disputed the lab theory and pointed toward a natural origin. The scientists said the genetic changes that allowed the virus to infect humans were imperfect, suggesting it occurred naturally. If it had been engineered in a lab, it would have been more precise. Scientists say the evidence pointing to a market in Wuhan as the source for COVID is overwhelming.
Ukraine's president says his country will make NATO stronger, while expressing disappointment that the military alliance is not ready to extend an invitation to Ukraine just yet. This comes after it was announced at the NATO summit in Lithuania that Sweden will be the latest nation to join. Skylar Henry has more.
Thanks, Lithuania. Thank you very much.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky pressed his case for joining NATO in Lithuania Tuesday, telling a pro-Ukrainian crowd Ukraine will make NATO stronger. Earlier, he blasted the military alliance for not setting a timetable for his country to join, calling it absurd.
We will issue an invitation for Ukraine to join NATO when allies agree and conditions are met.
The head of NATO told reporters member nations agreed to change Ukraine's membership path from 2 steps to 1, but isn't going further right now because of Russia's war.
When a war is going on, that's not the time for making Ukraine a full member of the alliance.
The summit kicked off with applause for Sweden's bid to join NATO. The membership breakthrough came after Turkey dropped its objections. President Biden hailed the development in a meeting with his Turkish counterpart.
Thank you for your diplomacy and courage to take that on.
Turkey's president didn't speak publicly about reversing course on Sweden, but the change is thought to be tied to Turkey's efforts to buy American F-16 fighter jets and join the European Union. The White House has expressed support for both. Sweden is following Finland into the alliance, and the Biden administration says the 2 additions send a signal to Russian President Vladimir Putin that his war in Ukraine has united the West against him. But a Kremlin spokesperson says it's NATO's expansion that in part led to the current situation. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
The Georgia grand jury handling potential indictments against former President Donald Trump has been selected and sworn in. It took 3 hours to choose the Atlanta area panel. Trump is accused of trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election results in that state. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis launched the investigation in early 2021. A special grand jury has already issued a redacted report with charging recommendations. The new grand jury will use that to decide whether Trump should be indicted. Willis has indicated a final decision could come next month. Trump and his Republican allies have denied any wrongdoing.
Owners of recalled 2003 Dodge Ram 1500s are being asked not to drive the car after a passenger in May died when a Takata airbag inflator exploded in the model of pickup truck. The death brings the total number of confirmed fatalities caused by Takata airbag explosions in the U.S. to 26. The other deaths involved vehicle drivers. 2003 Dodge Ram 1500s were among the over 385,000 vehicles recalled in 2015. Roughly 84,000 pickup trucks remain unrepaired. Drivers are warned to stop driving them until faulty inflators are replaced.
There's a new set of eyes on the streets of Waikiki at night. The city has hired a private security firm. Arlen Kawano joined them for a night and shows us how they operate.
The patrol started last month as a way to fill the gaps of HPD shortages.
Waikiki at night. Street traffic, foot traffic, crowds attract crime. Keeping people safe in the state's crown jewel takes more than just on-duty Honolulu police officers.
Ma'am, you okay? Hi, hello.
That's why off-duty officers working for Matt Levi Security have now been added to the area of Kuhio Beach Park. They patrol the section of Waikiki between the zoo and the substation.
Hello. Hey, how you doing, sir?
Good.
How's it going? Just reminding you guys that at 12 o'clock the beach closes, okay?
And they all know how to approach someone that might be committing a crime, approach someone that doesn't look like they belong, and to get them off. So they use that kind of presence about them to really make a difference.
A total of 4 guards work from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., 7 nights a week. The city's contract with Matt Levi Security is for 6 months. Federal post-pandemic recovery funds are covering the $450,000 price tag. This is the first time the city has hired private security to patrol Waikiki.
People are going to say, why are we spending taxpayer dollars when we have police officers?
This is a value proposition. It's not about what things cost. For everyone, for our local people, again, when they go down there, not have to worry about being hassled, our businesses, which we need to succeed, and certainly our tourists.
HPD is short nearly 400 officers. That's close to 20% of the force.
HPD has to care for the entire district, the entire Waikiki.
Overall crime in Waikiki was up last year over 2021, which was still under COVID restrictions. There were 4 murders in 2022, double from the year prior. Also up, rape, aggravated assault, larceny, and theft. Property crimes like burglary and robbery dropped. The Waikiki Business Improvement District says this year's crime numbers are down so far, and business owners believe they'll drop more with the addition of the private security, which supports HPD.
So far, everybody's been pretty good. No kickback at all for us. And if so, then we have HPD, readily available to come and assist us.
The guards did not want their faces shown because they still work plain clothes for the department. The mayor has not ruled out extending the contract if needed.
The private security patrols will continue through November 30th. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
The state plans a rapid expansion of raised pedestrian crosswalks, pointing to new data showing they are working to reduce crashes on Hawaii roads. Transportation officials say there are now more than 130 in the state after the first one was installed in Kalihi in 2019. There are dozens more on the way. There are already 10 raised crosswalks in Kailua and Kaneohe. A new one will be installed on Kamehameha Highway outside the Windward City Shopping Center, and one will be added outside Halekeiki Private School in Salt Lake. The vice principal told HNN it's much needed.
Cars do speed by. We don't need 3 speed bumps, but I think we need 1.
A few times I've been trying to go across a crosswalk and people go zooming, so I think I'm all for it. If he keeps the speeding down, accidents down, I'm all for it.
A Nanakuli stretch averaged 11 crashes a year before the speed humps and then 5 in the year after. The DOT says each raised pedestrian crosswalk costs between $50,000 to $150,000.
The DOE is welcoming 80 experienced teachers from the Philippines into Hawaii classrooms. The program is aimed at addressing the ongoing shortage of public school teachers. The new teachers went through an orientation yesterday before heading to their new assignments statewide. To qualify for the competitive program, the teachers had their credentials screened. Most have earned advanced degrees equal to U.S. universities.
The city says it undercounted the number of Skyline Riders during the first 5 days that weren't free. From July 5th to the 9th, the city originally reported about 8,000 trips, but officials said ridership was actually more than 18,000 or about 3,600 a day. The Department of Transportation Services says it originally included only riders who paid one-time fares at rail stations, but not transfer passengers and users with daily, weekly, or monthly passes. DTS expects more passengers when school resumes in August.
Well, today is Amazon Prime Day, which means you can find some sweet deals online. But for some people who deliver packages, there are still some problems that need to be worked out. Our Karen Kaifa explains.
We're talking about a potential strike by UPS workers who make millions of packages move every day. Contract negotiations are ongoing between the shipping giant and the union representing about 340,000 workers. Without a deal, those union workers plan to go on strike starting August 1st, and that could impact shipping of all types and what's on store shelves.
Search, click, buy, deliver. The two-day Amazon Prime Day event is off and running and prompting others like Walmart, Target, Best Buy, and Macy's to launch their own big July sales. It also highlights the supply chain that gets a package from warehouse to doorstep.
I think we take it for granted exactly how much we're purchasing, shipping. I mean, I think for a lot of Americans, we're probably getting a package maybe every other day.
While Amazon has its own delivery network, the company relies on UPS for some shipping, like many e-commerce outlets big and small. UPS carried an average of 20.8 million U.S. packages a day through last year. And more than 340,000 UPS workers represented by the Teamsters Union have authorized a strike over pay and working conditions starting August 1st if an agreement is not reached. The Biden administration is monitoring negotiations closely.
There's a reason why the parties negotiate directly. They stay at the table. I'm hopeful that that is what they will continue to do.
Virginia Tech economics professor Jadrian Wooten says a prolonged strike would have a wider ripple than many consumers might think as other shippers shoulder the extra load.
Even if you're not a UPS customer, if you are just purely FedEx, purely post office, you likely still will see an impact in your deliveries, even though you're not relying on UPS.
And it would happen at a crucial time for retailers during back-to-school shopping and as they stock shelves for the holidays.
And others in the shipping sector have been watching the UPS talks closely and thinking about their own plans in the event of a UPS strike. That includes FedEx and also the U.S. Postal Service, which has shifted to more package delivery as the number of first-class letters has declined. In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
All right, new at noon, the UH Manoa campus will be closed on Friday, September 1st to accommodate a surge of heavy traffic for the Rainbow Warrior football team's season opener against Stanford University. UH is hosting Stanford at the Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex in a nationally televised game on CBS with kickoff at 5 p.m. Hawaii time. Now, school officials say on-campus activity will be restricted that day to minimize the impact on students, faculty, staff, and of course the surrounding community. Now, the game was originally scheduled to be played at Aloha Stadium. The recently expanded Ching Complex will be able to accommodate 15,000 fans on game day, and there will be no other home football games on Fridays until the stadium that will replace Aloha Stadium is open. Okay, let's take a live look outside now with our tower cam. Look at that mixture of clouds in the blue skies over Honolulu. Let's see what's in your forecast. Let's check in with Billy V.
15 to 25 mile per hour is your forecast winds today, with some more rainfall. Daytime high near 88 degrees, overnight low near 76. Just know that once we get to the overnight hours and the early morning hours, that's when we'll probably see the most rain. But we are seeing some heavier rain, so it's not going to be not like a storm or heavy rain that's coming, although we may get some pockets. But it's going to be more of a complete coverage that we'll see across the Windward and Mauka sections of most of the islands. That's for the next 48 hours. After that, trade wind still blowing, but we'll of course lose some of that remnant moisture, and we'll be back to regular trade wind weather Thursday, Friday, Saturday as we get into the weekend and into the rest of the week. Once we get towards Thursday, 89 degrees your daytime high, so more of the upper 80s, lower 90s as we get later in the week.
Have you ever had a pen pal? Well, there's one woman in Kentucky who had a pen pal since she was in elementary school, and for decades they kept in touch. Now, as Shannon Kogan explains, more than 40 years later, something special has finally happened.
Martha Gray was in the 3rd grade at St. Augustine in Lebanon, Kentucky.
And our teachers asked if we wanted to have a pen pal from another country. And so I signed up.
She was matched with Johanna Maiden of Sweden, also growing up in a small town with 2 siblings.
She said as soon as she would write, she would wait by the mailbox to get my letters back.
They would write each other at least once a month for years, sharing stories of their family, first boyfriends, first jobs.
She kind of was my sister when we were growing up, the girl that I could chat with and tell all my little childhood secrets and whatever. And she would write back the same.
Later, they wrote about marriage, children, and sadness. This is a letter Johanna sent after Martha was diagnosed with breast cancer. Those handwritten letters turned into sharing on social media and phone calls.
And every time we would talk on the phone, she would say, oh, my dream is one day that we can meet.
In June, this happened. The 2 3rd grade girls who lived an ocean and 4,400 miles apart met in person. Martha and her husband traveled to Sweden, staying 3 days with Johanna and her family.
In a way, surreal, but in a way, it was like, I've known her so long, it was like my old friend. It was just comfortable. You have your shirt on.
Martha FaceTimed Johanna while we were with her, and we talked about the first moment she opened the door to see her friend. What was that moment like?
Oh, it was just like she had been here for many times before.
A relationship so special, even though they had never met in person. You named your daughter after your pen pal.
Yes.
Now Johanna and her family are planning on traveling to Kentucky. Pen pals that have turned into forever friends.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Talk later.
What a special friendship there. All right, time for some good news on this Aloha Tuesday. So today is July 11th, 7-Eleven, and the world's largest convenience retailer is celebrating its 96th birthday in a special way. So 7-Eleven is giving customers a free small Slurpee to say mahalo for supporting the company. 7-Eleven was founded in 1927. I don't know how many of you know this, but it was an ice house storefront in Dallas, Texas initially. Along with the free Slurpee, rewards members can also enjoy $1 deals on snacks like hot dogs and pizza slices. All right, time for some entertainment news now. The prequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is out with a trailer. Check it out.
You see, I'm something of a magician, inventor, and chocolate maker. So quiet up and listen down. Nope, scratch that, reverse it.
Mr. Wonka, I can see you're a man of great ingenuity. What are you doing?
I'm making chocolate, of course. How do you like it? Dark, white, nutty? Absolutely.
All right, everyone loves a good origin story, right? So the movie explores how a young Willy Wonka first met the Oompa Loompas on an adventure. It shows a young Wonka setting out on a quest to shake up the chocolate industry and explore how Wonka first met the Oompa Loompas. So Timothée Chalamet steps into the shoes previously filled by Gene Wilder